as a kid or whatever, I got teased for my hypervigilance. I got teased for my coping skills to my trauma. So that's what makes it harder. Like even coping with the trauma makes you weird. So now those things are weird. So now you don't even want to show you're trying to cope. So you're trying to look normal. So I'm not about to be like I'm watching.
Yeah.
That makes me look crazy, and it makes me more of a target.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Codependent Podcast. A little heavier topic for today. We're going to be talking about molestation, the symptoms, how it affects people throughout their lives, some of the things you deal with after being a victim of sexual abuse early in your life. I heard a statistic one time, sorry for not having it backed up. 1 out of 4 black women experiences sexual trauma in their lifetime. That is literally insane. That's if you see 4 black women in public, one of them's been sexually abused. If you see, in a grocery store, you're talking about, 10 women who could have been. So, it's not something that I've experienced in my past, but it is something that, in being in a relationship with you for 20 years, I've gotten to learn about indirectly.
Meaning other women you've dated, you never experienced, or you mean yourself?
Yeah, from you, I've experienced it indirectly, learning about
molestation.
Yeah, from you.
Because we say 1 in 4 women, I don't know the stat off of the top of my head for men, but men are molested too. That's a big part of the problem too. Like the conversation around it is usually around women.
Right.
We have somewhat more of an understanding of the symptoms and how it impacts women because that's discussed more freely, because that's more safe, right? We protect women. As opposed to when molestation happens to men are often the blame for it, right? Even women are. So when people have asked me about it, there's always questions where it's like, why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that, right? Like there's a little bit of blame in those questions where it's like, what did you do to stop it, right? I shouldn't have to do shit to stop it because this shouldn't happen. Well, I'm a girl. So there's also an idea in society, girls can't protect themselves fully.
A helplessness.
So there's not a full-on expectation that I should be able to fight off, right? But for boys, even if you're a child, there's still this like, how did you let this happen? Or how did you participate with it, right? So now it's a blaming thing because you couldn't stop it, which makes men feel emasculated and then having to prove their masculinity through life.
I think that it seems common that when we do these blaming, dismissive techniques to a sexual abuse victim, the trauma bothers us to hear it, bothers us to imagine it.
Yes.
So we're almost angry that it occurred. And so now we'll use anything to kind of diminish that discomfort that we're hearing as the listener of sexual abuse.
It happens on smaller scales with children, right? A child falls. Me and you used to laugh at this when we were parents. A child falls. What is the parent? What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this? What is? It's like there's an anger.
Come on, get up. Get
because
over it.
It's concern and it's worry. There's probably even some guilt. And if we're talking about molestation, we know the parents are feeling some type of guilt. Like, how did I let this happen?
Yeah.
But like you just said, it makes society uncomfortable because it makes society feel, how does this happen? How did we let this happen? How does this happen in families? Did this happen in my families? I've even had people tell me, oh, that ain't happening in my family. So we want to guarantee this isn't a part of my reality, so we shut it down.
Yeah.
Literally and metaphorically, which even to you said, people who have been molested pick up on that, right? So like just conversationally, I can bring it up. You see the conversation shifts. You see body language shift. You see people shut down. So you know there's no space to talk about this, right? This is not acceptable. But if you're a child going through this, which is when it occurs for most people, is in like teenage, young adult, early, it happens lesser as you get 30 and up. So a lot of rapes and molestations are early 20s into childhood and teens. How could you know how to process any of that? So that becomes something's wrong with me, right? And oftentimes when the situations occur early on in childhood, there is, like you said, direct anger projected onto the children that becomes more validating that something's wrong with me, or I did something wrong, or this is my fault, because the parents are yelling at you, oftentimes fussing at you, right? Like reacting to the situation, like, and then we don't talk about this, right? So now don't talk to your friends about this, don't talk to family about this, don't discuss these things because of the shame attached to it. So now that shame is projected onto the kids. So something's wrong with me, I'm the embarrassing thing.
Right.
You don't want to talk about this thing that happened to me that I kind of need to talk about, so you're embarrassed of me.
And it's so
You're ashamed of
it's
me.
not, and it doesn't feel like a shame about what happened. It feels like shame on you.
Because the anger's at you, right? Why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you ask these questions? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't, like, whatever the questions are, there's an animosity. It ain't directed at the person that did that shit to you, because that person's not around. So it's a lot, like you just said, in the same heat of the moment when the kid falls, what is going on? Well, you're asking that to a child who don't know what's going on. They're trying to process what happened to them, and what happened to them isn't their fault, but the parent is projecting their guilt, their inadequacies, their failings, their frustrations, their sadness, their disappointment, their pain, all of that. Children can't understand that.
Right.
And because it's not talked about, there's never understanding gotten on it until years later, which is part of the more trauma, right? Because that means you had however many years, say it happens at 8. Now 20 years, you're 28, and this is the first time that you can kind of process it. So that means you had to sit with all of those emotions every time you were triggered, every time something happens, every time it's brought back up. You got to sit with that by yourself.
Let's talk about that, actually. So in your own personal experience, how did you feel the molestation affecting you in later years? In ways you felt were unprocessed or lingering, even though it happened a while ago. How did you feel the ramifications and the effects of it throughout your life?
One of the first ways is what you just said. I talked to people, like certain people knew it happened, right? And because I had told people throughout the years that it had happened, there's an assumption that you processed all of those thoughts and emotions, right? So now when I'm in my 20s and 30s, and I'm early 20s, first of all, like the teens to 20s is when I really started to notice, as I'm talking about it, people are kind of like, you still dealing with that? You still talking about that? You still going through that? Which is a minimization and a dismissal of your experience, which is what happened kind of growing up.
Okay.
So because of that, how can you heal through it, right? Like there wasn't space growing up to talk about it. There wasn't space now to talk about it. There wasn't space ever to sit and process with it, so you didn't. I didn't, right? Like I'm seeing signals from everyone that you're supposed to be done with it, over it, through it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
How were those signals? What were the signals people were giving you around that?
That question. You still dealing with it? You not over this?
Wow.
Right? That lets me know I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
Or I should be, is what people are telling me, right? Even to what you're saying, conversation shut down. People are saying, I don't really want to talk about that. So then who do I talk about it with? So even just in different areas of like healing and growth, you go to church. There's a conversation around being healed, being fixed, being complete, no longer being broken, right? So there's a narrative that there's a goal that I'm supposed to get to where this shit don't bother me no more, or this stuff isn't affecting me anymore, or this isn't impacting my life anymore. I'm not stupid. I'm aware. I'm seeing it's affecting me every day of my life. What's wrong with me that this is still affecting me?
Oh, wow.
What's wrong with this that I can't forgive them, right? I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to forgive even my enemies. I'm supposed to love even my enemies. Everyone's telling me, but this is your mom. But this is your mom. So I should love her. I should forgive her. I can't. I'm struggling. What's wrong with me? Why can't I forgive her? Why can't I let this go? Why can't I be over this, so to speak? Here's this man who's done all of these things, but he's also your stepfather. He also helped raise you. He also helped provide and take care of you and do certain things for you. And he's the father of your siblings. How can I let this go? Because that would make it easy for the family. That would make it easy for all of us, so to speak, if I could forgive, move on, and this ain't bothering me. So that's my goal. How come I can't get there?
Wow.
How come it's still bothering me? How come sometimes I'm still angry with him, still pissed at her, still upset with this? So something must be wrong with me.
So you feel the blame because it happened, and then you feel the blame again almost every time. You can't just push past it, get it out of your mind, and get on the path and the track that's easier for everybody else. Wow. From a psychological standpoint, you being a wonderful therapist, one of the best on the East Coast, how, how do you see the damaging effects of trying to force people past it while not addressing it? How do you see that manifesting harmfully in sexual abuse victims?
Broken families, broken relationships. When we talk about why don't relationships work, I usually hear men and women on either side of the equation say that they don't want to deal with someone who has trauma, right? Which I understand. So where you going to find that person? You just said 1 in 4 women have trauma. We didn't even get the stats in men.
Right.
So you've taken out a quarter of a population on one end of it. So what if the other quarter is taken out? We're trying to find relationships with people without flaws. There isn't any. And then that also projects an idea that some people are lovable and worth loving and some people aren't. Well, guess what? Trauma and sexual molestation already made you feel unlovable. It already makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, right? Like you're a target, right? So you already feel unlovable because this happened to you and no one even cares to hear your pain.
Wow.
No one even cares to sit and listen to what happened to you and why it's affected you. It's always, how did it affect others, right? Like, why didn't you speak up? Because this is affecting the family, or this could have happened to other kids, or this could have been da-da-da.
Yeah.
Like, there's never really a priority of what you needed or wanted in your childhood. So now you don't know how to make yourself a priority.
Wow.
Your needs a priority. Your family didn't. Your parents didn't. The people that were supposed to protect you didn't prioritize you. They prioritized themselves. Let's keep this quiet. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do all of these things so this ain't more embarrassing to the family. We don't even ask you what you need. Ever.
Yeah. And we got married.
How do you feel? Ever. Never asked.
We got married at 19, 20. And I remember for at least the first 10 years of our relationship, I've known about your trauma the whole time. And I know I had this internal thing where if it was brought up, I was trying to move past it. I was trying not to think of it. It was difficult for me. I think you may have been the first person to ever tell me back when we were in high school that they had been molested before. So it hit me weird, right? That's some movie shit. And then I think it took me almost a full decade to be able to sit with it. I remember one time you challenged me, and we were in our 20s. Like, if you can't even sit down and think about it, imagine me living with it and the ramifications for the last 20 years of my life. And that challenge right there, almost when you put up how big your boulder was, it gave me courage, or even guilted me into maybe sitting in and trying to empathize with you. It was kind of like a turning point for me in bravery. Not trying to give myself any credit here on this episode.
No, I think it's an important thing to note, because it's the difficulties between the privileged and the unprivileged, right? In every area of society. The privileged doesn't want to sit with the unprivileged truth because it causes them discomfort.
Yeah.
And that's fair, because like you just said, this is something I've never seen or understood or experienced, and it's shaking, it's jarring, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. It is jarring. It was also jarring for that person when they lived it.
Absolutely.
And whatever they experienced it, right? And so that's the privilege. You did not have to go through that experience.
Yeah.
Someone else had no choice.
Right.
They had no choice.
Right.
So they had to live through, like you said, something I can't even sit with at 28. They went through at 8. Something I can't even sit through and think about at 30, 40, they went through at 10, 5 years old. So I agree, it's horrific. They don't want to go through it either.
Right.
You don't want to go through it. But that's also the disconnect in society, because you can't sit with it. And I'm not saying you have to, but if you can't understand them.
Right. And then good luck being in an intimate relationship.
How you gonna have a relationship with someone you can't understand?
Yeah, it's gonna be
and
difficult.
and that's part of why we decided to have this podcast, because there are so many symptoms that's why my clients come to me. Like, you're like, oh, great therapist on the East Coast. Why? Because I went through all this shit.
Yeah.
So when other therapists are talking from a textbook, I'm talking from life experience. So when someone else may dismiss their experience, even therapists, even doctors, even professionals, because that's part of what makes the trauma worse, it's not just one person. Everyone traumatizes you from one experience.
Re-traumatized.
Re-traumatizes you in that one experience, and most people have more than one experience of trauma, which is why people don't trust nobody. Like when people look at me, they may not understand how pervasive my trust issues are. That's something I tell people all the time. Oh, I have trust issues, or clients have trust issues, and people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I have trust issues too, and then they want you to trust them.
Right.
You don't understand trust issues.
Right.
Why would I? Why would they? Right? Even to what you were just saying, you have someone who says they love you, they care about you, but they can't hear you, they can't understand you, which means they can't see you. You want me to trust you? You don't know me.
Right. Or what I've been
Or
through.
what I've been through. You don't know anything about me because you don't know the depths of where this could take me. Good, bad, great, not, whatever. You don't know. So what are you saying you like? How I seem? My image? My appearance? Because you don't know the depths, which means you don't know what you're going to get into. And I know, like you just said, how overwhelming that can be, which means you can't handle me.
So basically, each person you meet and start building a relationship with, you have like this poison pill in your pocket that is your past that almost gives you fear to reveal it. Does that sound accurate? Where it's almost like you're scared to tell new people about?
No and yes.
Okay.
It's a knowledge, right? Like people look at it like, oh, this is a poison pill because that's what they think trust issues means. It's not a poison pill. It's a logical response, right? I have knowledge and information just like you have knowledge and information. If you went to college and got knowledge and you went to your job and said, based on my learning and experience, I now have these experiences. No one says that's a poison pill, right? That's a resume.
Right.
This is my resume. 9 times out of 10, this is what's going to occur. I've seen it. So I know 9 times out of 10, this is what's going to occur. So for you to give me a different response is an anomaly. So you're wanting me to hope for you to be an anomaly.
Right.
That's not my hope. That's not my belief. That's not my trust. That's like we just said, if 1 in 4 women are molested, 3 in 4 are not. So you've dealt with 3 in 4 women. You dealt with 3 in 4 women in your past. So how you going to understand 1 in 4 if you dealt with 3 in 4? I'm an anomaly. By definition, you're saying this is something you haven't seen before. You haven't experienced before. So I already know you're going to misunderstand me, misinterpret certain things I do. And you're asking me to be okay with that. You're asking me to sign up for that. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, right? Like that's on the other side of it. People are like, oh, trust me. I do trust. You will hurt me. You will misunderstand me. You will misinterpret me. You will project onto me in ways that's going to trigger and hurt and bother me deeply that I have to process and push through in order to have a relationship with you. I already know that's going to happen because that's happened in every relationship I've ever had in my life and will ever have in my life. I have to sign up for that. That's what love means. I'm signing up for you to cause me pain. On both ends, because I'm going to cause you pain too. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but that's what it means to have flaws, to be human, to make mistakes. And some of us, if we're having triggers, we might have more flaws.
On that note, what are some of the micro symptoms and reverberations that you felt from, maybe that you even still deal with? That people might overlook these.
There's so many. One of the things is people often tell me, so like me and you know that one of my trauma symptoms is I'm talkative, and that was criticized a lot growing up, but it was because I was isolated. So when I finally got around people I felt safe and comfortable with, I talk a lot. Well, then that was triggered. That became a new trigger, right? Oh, you talk too much, you talk too much, you talk too much. So now I stopped talking. So now that's a new trigger. You don't talk, you don't talk, you don't talk. Well, it goes to what you're just saying. I've now seen there's not going to be a positive response to a lot of things I have to say, especially if my speech is not normal, right? Because like you said, there's things that's on me. So we're sitting around a table. I don't know how many times this happened to you and I. We're sitting around talking to people that we love. We're having a great conversation. It's funny. People are sharing childhood stories, and then they ask me, what about you? Debbie Downer. Like, let's just, let's not even do that. But even that question is already a trigger that I have to process without crying in front of you. That I have to think about, that my childhood experience, reminder how many times in my life my childhood experience wasn't your childhood experience. My childhood experience wasn't this lighthearted, fun and games all the time kind of thing that everybody wants to sit and joke about, like, oh, when I was growing up, I don't have that. So that's a reminder that I don't necessarily want to think about, that boom is brought up right now, that I have to process in a lighthearted way so that doesn't ruin the mood.
So it's like a social pressure to like react and speak about some of your darkest days positively,
Lightheartedly, because you don't
for
want
the
to ruin
sake
it.
of the current mood that we're operating
Even in school, they ask you questions to, especially in psychology, like we have to ask questions to dig deep, to understand ourselves, understand each other, to understand psychology even. And we do a lot of exercises, like fishbowl activities. You're the therapist, you're the client, role playing type stuff. So I have to role play, and you can't make it up because you have to answer questions in the moment, which means you have to kind of use your own stories.
Right.
But you also don't really want to start talking about molestation in front of the whole classroom of strangers.
Right.
But the moment they tell you about to pop up and get into an exercise and do therapy, what do you think is going to come to your mind?
It's coming.
And it's one of those things. How did I learn meditation? Because when you tell somebody not to think of something, that's what they think about. That's been my whole life experience. Here's a hot seat moment. We have to have a conversation. I'm already thinking, you can't share this, can't share this, can't share this. What can I talk about? And you want me to just talk easily with you, and I got to process through all of these thoughts and memories and ideas of what is appropriate to share with you in this moment.
Did that start in the house? Did that start when you had to learn not to share family business and
Started in childhood.
Not to snitch and to keep all this in house?
Starts with a lot of kids in childhood, because what do your parents say? Why did you say that? Ooh, wasn't supposed to say that. Oh, no parent gives you a list of things. Hey guys, this is the family rules. That's not what happens. So kids go through life and then they're yelled at. That's how they discover. That's how they're taught, so to speak. In school, your teacher tells you, here's the lesson for the day. At home, it's, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why did you do this? Maybe popped, literally. Why did you do that?
Pop quiz. Yeah.
What the hell? Oh, so I have to do the work to realize that was wrong, right? Didn't have a conversation, so you still don't know why. Oh shit, that's wrong. So next time you got hit again, didn't I tell you not to do this? Now I got to process, what did I do then and what did I do now, and try to figure out what did I do wrong and what is it in specifically that's the problem, so that I don't repeat this.
Right.
That's all work that the child is doing internally, which is where you learn emotional intelligence. I got to read the room, and I got to read the room really well, or else I'm going to get hit, or I'm going to get beat, or I'm going to get in trouble. So I got to learn to read this room. So that's why I'm saying, people are like, oh, you have good emotional intelligence. You better. You right. You got to read things quickly. But
so you end up developing those reading capabilities, emotional intelligence, from how you have to manage this trauma as a kid.
I did, right? And so that's another part of the challenge, is because I was an intelligent kid. Not everyone is going to interpret trauma the way I interpreted it. And not everyone's going to respond to trauma the way I responded to it, right? Which is also part of my trauma. I was a smart kid. So people are like, oh, you couldn't possibly be thinking about all of this, or going through all of this, or understanding it on this level. But I was. And people still now to this day are like, how did you figure all of this out? Or how come you see things this way? I can't tell you why I am who I am. It's a combination of all of my experiences and all of the work I did with it and all of da. It doesn't look like yours.
Right.
No. That's what people are saying. I don't look like that. No, you don't. I don't look like you. I will say the same thing to you. How did you do this? Or how did you get through that? I think the problem with trauma is every kid is unique, but every kid doesn't know they're unique. Trauma makes you know you're unique early on. You have no choice, because everything I ever did was wrong. Like, why are you doing that? Oh, why are you doing that? Oh, like, you didn't do this. Or like even kids pointing things out or saying certain things to you, you're like, clearly something is off, and therefore that's why that happened to me. Right? That's the problem with molestation.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying other criticisms, other critiques that you receive go back and validate the actual abuse?
And compliments. One of the hardest triggers for people and men to understand, and women that were molested, is that sex is not a natural turn on, right? Like, I'm a very sexual person despite it, but not in the way people think, right? So I'm very sexual with you, because I've gotten comfortable with you, because I feel safe and secure with you. And I understand part of my other parts of trauma, I was always hypersexual, like around me, like the conversations around me, the experiences around me, the things around me was always sexual. So I've always been comfortable with sex and familiar with sex. But the other side of it is people look at it like it's one-time event. It's not. I was molested by my stepfather. I was molested by lots of other people as well. And I never got a chance to deal with any of those others because I was molested by my stepfather, right? So like, you're like, what was the trauma? The trauma was like, I was beat also. I was also suffocated. I was also smothered. I was all these other things that I never dealt with because I was molested by my stepfather. And I lived with him every single day. So that is huge enough to deal with. You can't even begin to deal with all of these other things. Which for me became like, men give you a compliment. I don't want your compliments. I've known since I was 6 that people are sexually attracted to me. That's not a compliment to me. That's a compliment to you, because in your 20s, you're still trying to get people to be sexually attracted to you. I've been attracted to, like, people have wanted me literally since I was a kid. That's sick. So the moment you come to me with that, I'm disgusted, kind of. That's not the energy I'm looking for. That's the energy other women may be looking for. That's the problem. So you have people that give you a compliment that think you should like it. I don't like the compliment.
Yeah, I think a lot of men miss this fact. And maybe women too, for men who have been molested.
That's a great point. Because we've seen Gates. I'm not saying Gates was molested, but we've seen certain celebrities who women tried to grope them and they reacted.
Yeah.
And we think that's too strong. What fuck makes you think it's okay for you to touch me? Because I'm a man.
Yeah.
That's not cool. Just like it's not cool if I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So you think it's okay. That's part of the problems in society. Certain people don't have rights. Oh, you can grope men. No, you can't.
Right.
And you can't grope women.
And you don't know their history. That could be snapping them right back to sexual abuse. And I think it could help all of us in the way that we approach people that we're interested in. If you realize that you might like this type of compliment, but it can mean a completely different thing to this person.
And it goes into so many areas, because that's a great point. I was at the gas station and a guy came up to me to hit on me. The fact that he approached me, he noticed, which made me like him, like not romantically, but just respect him, because he was aware. Because when he approached me, I backed up instantly and went around the other side of the car. I put space between us. I don't know you. Why are you walking up to me? Mm-hmm. I am super aware in a lot of situations. Like, people tell me they don't realize it because I'm very ditzy and I'm very playful. So they're like, oh, you're not paying attention. Oh, my peripherals are working, because I don't, like, I've gotten so good at it, which my friends don't realize, that I don't want you to know, because that was what my thing is. As a kid or whatever, I got teased for my hypervigilance. I got teased for my coping skills to my trauma. So that's what makes it harder. Like, even coping with the trauma makes you weird. So now those things are weird. So now you don't even want to show you're trying to cope. So you're trying to look normal. So I'm not about to be like, I'm watching.
Yeah.
That makes me look crazy, and it makes me more of a target. So I have to be aware without you knowing I'm aware. So my peripherals are paying attention. If I hear steps, I'm alert. You think I'm talking to you, I'm not listening to you. Which is why people don't understand. Oh, you're not paying attention to this conversation. You damn skippy. I'm paying attention to my surroundings. So when he's walking up to me, what are you like? And he could see that. And when I seen him see that and adjust, now I'm adjusting. Oh, you're not a predator because you backed up. You're not still coming towards me. I have to do all of this work for every interaction I ever have. And that's what men don't realize. Like, they're like, oh, I'm not a predator. They're hurt. I got to do that work myself to assess that.
Yeah.
Anyone can be. I lived with one.
Right.
No one thought he was one either. I live with I've been around other ones that no one thought were either. So I have to be aware that it's not going to come. Like, when they say wolf in sheep's clothing, you could. And everybody wants to say I'm a sheep. Well, everyone says that. I have to do that work. Every single person. I don't care if it's business, professional, romantic, whatever the interest is. I'm seeing if you're trustworthy, which means that's a slow process for me. And you can tell me, but I live with someone who could show you all these wonderful things too. That's what people don't realize. Like, oh, I did this nice thing for you. So did they. They cooked for me. They cleaned. They gave me food. They gave me clothes. They did lots of other things for me, and these horrific things as well. So I've known from an early age it's not black or white, but that's what makes it harder for you to trust not only others, but your own read. Because it wasn't just the molestation, it was so many other things that I had to deal with, including like psychological gains. So I don't trust all the time. I think you're safe, but I thought they were.
Yeah.
So you seem cool, but I don't know. And now you done this, so now I'm going back through it. Like, is this just a lapse in moment? Is this just a normal human behavior? Are you a sociopath?
Yeah.
Are you a narcissist, right? Like, are you just making a mistake? Because we're all humans who make mistakes. Or is this something where you're trying to hurt me? You're trying to take advantage of me in some way? I don't know, because everybody makes mistakes, but I got to process all of that. Other thing is just watching a TV show. Something can happen in the show that can trigger me. People know I'm emotional. They don't know why. So there's times when the kids can sit and see me crying and they know mommy's emotional about this movie. And everyone has normalized that. But they don't realize sometimes I'm literally crying about my own trauma that this movie has triggered.
Right.
Or my own experiences. Or even just the fact that I can't connect with my kids because I've had experiences they didn't have. So they're not going to fully understand me. They're going to, oh, why are you so extra with this? Because I've been through some shit you ain't been through.
Yeah.
Why are you so weird about this? Because I've seen some things you ain't seen. Why are you so protective in this area? Or you don't, like, why will I go? Any of my friends know if something happens to my kids or their kids, I'm going to have a different energy. Everyone knows that about me. Why? Because of what happened to me as a kid. Like, you think I'm about to let you do that to my kids? Now, it could still happen, but everything in me is going to try and fight it and prevent it as much as I can because, like, again, I know the effects. What you said about most men not understanding, I know that easily. Women know that easily, which is why they don't have safe, comfortable relationships with men, right? The fact that rape is like 5-year sentences, 6-year sentences, 8-year sentences, and murder is like life, death sentence. Most of my life, I have always said I would have rather died than been molested. If I die, I'm at peace. I'm gone. I'm not here. I'm living easy, resting in peace. To live the life I had to live has been a daily fight my entire life. Struggle and battle that someone else caused me, then left me to deal with, that I have to pick the pieces up that have affected my husband. It's affected my kids. It's affected my friends from something that happened to me. That I have to deal with, that everybody says, well, it's your responsibility now. You're grown. Now it's your job to deal with it. It's your job to figure it out. How? So I'm just left to deal with it, and I'm supposed to then be grateful that this is a life I was given. I'm supposed to be happy and grateful and go lucky and polite and positive, or else no one wants to interact with you because who wants to be around negative space? Am I negative, or is this fucking world negative? So if you're not lighthearted and you're not happy and you're not positive and you're not bubbly, now you're negative. That's another trauma. So now you're triggering me more because now I'm the problem again by something that happened to me. Which, if we were doing the man's episode, perfect. That's how men feel. They weren't allowed to emote. Trauma happened to them. Now I'm blamed for what happened to me. So now imagine a man molested.
It's not rare.
It's not. It's not as rare as we think. It's just not discussed.
Yeah. There's probably a lot more unreported. And we had a conversation before about how you think the molestation of men mixed with the patriarchy, mixed with the lack of emoting, can really cause certain types of suppression that leak into definitely their intimate relationships, definitely the way they pursue women, and also contribute to some confusion around sexuality in general.
Confusions around sexuality, which then could be gay, could be bisexual, but oftentimes is let me be a hoe. Let me prove my masculinity, right? Because that's the socially acceptable way. The other one is also a struggle. Am I gay? Am I bisexual because of these experiences that happened to me, right? I had no choice in them, but now they happened, and now I have feelings attached to that, right? Because we talk about getting into some shit. This is very hard for people to digest. And it's very hard for people to accept. But the same with drugs. Everything that happens with drugs is not bad. Everything that happens with molestation is not bad to the molested person, right? Me as a child. You have to learn these things are wrong. As a kid, this person is giving me attention. This person is maybe giving me special gifts. This person is giving me attention and affection. And predators target kids who are in traumatic situations already. right? Meaning you're already isolated, you're already like the awkward kid, you're already kind of quiet or to yourself or to whatever, so you're probably not going to talk to other people and tell people what's going on. Like, this is the reason they target you to begin with, but then they build on that. So now that's what creates the fucked up mindset for people who've been molested, because I liked some components of what happened to me.
That's how the predators work it, right? Yeah.
How could you not? You're a kid. If you're in a traumatized situation that you're not getting love, you're not getting attention, you're not getting affection, here's someone giving it to you. And people blame the kid, like, I'm supposed to know that this isn't what I want? How could I know that as a kid? I'm supposed to know that this is something I don't like? How am I supposed to know that as a kid? And what's fucked up is sex is pleasurable. You're introducing pleasurable acts in an unpleasurable way. It's not black or white. So now I liked how this felt. I didn't like that you did it, but I did like how this felt. I want that feeling again. So that's why the kids become hypersexualized. And not just hypersexualized, but now they're looking for that repeat feeling and that repeat connection. So they may do it to other kids. Now they're a perpetrator. They don't know what the hell is happening. And now the family, man, I've worked with clients who were perpetrators in addition to victims, and now you're disgusting. Now you're this, now you're a perp, now you're a predator, now you're all of these
Scum
things.
of the earth.
Scum of the fucking earth, and you're a kid. Trying to understand what happened to you. Trying to feel peace or comfort because of what happened to you. I used to masturbate as a kid. I didn't know that's what it was. This feels good. This is soothing me. But then adults come, what is it? What are you doing? I'm trying to feel good again after something bad happened and all this chaos that's around me and everything's stress. This is a stress reliever. After you feel some type, like, I don't know if you can even orgasm as a kid, but you're feeling the same kind of, like, when someone massages you, it feels good. It relaxes
The
you.
dopamine and serotonin release, I would assume.
Absolutely. So now
Jesus
you got to get
Christ.
judged for these things. That's what I'm saying. Where do you think kinks come from? Fetishes come from? Why do women who were raped have a rape fetish? Why do people who were molested or raped like to be choked, like to be rough sex, like these things, right? It's like people don't understand that there's a weird dichotomy, because I don't like what happened, but I like certain things I learned through that experience. So now you may want those things to be repeated. That messes up the head of the next person you're trying to deal with. They're like, you want me to fucking do what this nigga did to you?
Wow. Wow.
That makes complications in sex and intimacy, and that's just if we're going deep into the sex. What about just other things, right? Like that's heavy. What about this person introduced me to a song and I like this song? This person introduced me to certain foods. Like, I struggled with so many things that I genuinely liked that I hated because of how they were introduced to me, right? Because my mother, my stepfather introduced these things to me, because they liked these things, because they supported me in these things or whatever. They were part of these experiences in any way, shape, or form.
It gets wrapped up with the trauma. Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. Me and you talked about it. I hate the Cowboys. Why? My stepfather liked the Cowboys. Hate them, hate them, hate them. It's not rational. I got people that don't like black people because a black person was the one that abused them, or don't like dark or light, or don't like this or that, or right? Like, all of these associations in society, we can get into that too, because a lot of the colorism is based on your trauma with that whatever race. So now it's projected onto all, right? So that's where men feel pain. Not all men are bad, true. But how am I supposed to know which?
Yeah.
I never feel like all men are bad. I've seen men that are not. But how am I supposed to know in this moment you're a good one, not a bad one?
Yeah.
So I have to put you through the ringer with everybody else. That's just life.
It's not worth the risk. Yeah. Wow.
And it goes into memories, like you said, everything. So that's why when people are like, oh, childhood memories, there's no dissecting good and bad. It's all interwoven and intermingled. So I had to, like, reclaim certain songs. Like, I hadn't listened to songs in decades. Foods or things. Like, I don't want nothing to do with nothing. Reclaim it. Own it back. Like, you don't get that just because you were a part of that. And now I can't never experience it. Because that's part of what happens. I started to almost shrink my world more and more of, like, what I could do and who I could be around and where I could go. And the things I could, like, participate in based on what was comfortable and safe and secure. So I had to start kind of pushing back a little bit, like testing those waters, like, man, fuck this, I gotta go places, I gotta do things, I gotta But that means re-triggering myself and
Yeah.
sitting with it intentionally to get okay with dealing with it,
Wow.
or okay sitting in that. And that's why I said people don't really understand what they're asking you to do.
It sounds like a little bit of a desensitization therapy technique that you're doing.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Absolutely. That is desensitization. And that's the reason why I think, again, with my clients, I can be good and I can help them, because it's like my whole life I have to face fears, right? Like you saying, talking about symptoms. The other day, I was washing my face and I realized the way I wash my face is a trauma response. I'm 38 years old. I haven't been in that house for at least 20 years. And I still don't feel comfortable washing my face because I can't see. And I can't see what's coming up behind me and who's coming around me and who's in the bathroom with me if I have soap on my face and in my eyes. So normally when I wash my face, I try to go all around. But when I wear makeup, I gotta get my eyes, I gotta get the mascara, I gotta get the stuff. Sometimes I'll try to just do one, or sometimes I'm like, fuck it, like, but hurry up. But I could literally sometimes feel the panic in me when I'm washing my hair or washing my face, like, hurry up, get it off, hurry up. I have to tell myself, set in, relax. Even coming into the basement, tell myself, relax, you're fine. No one's there. You think it, no one's there. Test it, go down, see? Feel it. You're feeling all of the panic attack. I told you that a lot of times. Like, I'll come into the basement, flick the light on. Like, I'm running in and out the basement because I don't want to stay in the basement too long. I don't like the dark, but I need the dark to sleep. Like, it's just weird dichotomies that you have to force yourself to experience and to get used to. Stretching. Because I was smothered and suffocated, I cannot cope with things on my face, on my nose. I can't, like, stuff like this would trigger me. So even when I'm stretching or I'm in certain positions, it's not comfortable because I can't feel like I can breathe. I can feel that panic attack coming.
Yeah.
So it's like things that I won't push myself even to do because of those triggers. It's so many things. Riding in a car. And the craziest thing about it, even for my clients, is you get to a place where you start to learn your triggers. You start to learn what happened to you. You start to learn and understand it. So you settle in. You get to a place you're good. You're comfortable. You're like, okay, I beat this thing. I got it.
Wow.
I got it.
Right.
I got it.
Right.
And then something happens. It could be something small, right? You and the kids used to do pranks with me, with all of us. We do pranks. I like pranks. But the pranks weren't fun for y'all when y'all do them to me because of my trauma.
Yeah.
And it bothered me because I don't want to be left out. I want to be normal, right? So I want you guys to be able to play. I want to be able to play with you, but we had to accept you're not normal in this way. You can't play in this way.
Yeah.
We all will suffer for weeks. You're going to be jumpy. You're going to have nightmares.
A lot of people jump when they get scared. You vault.
It's funny, but it's not. Like, there's times I've cried about it. Like, but it's funny, right? Like, and that's the thing too. People don't understand why am I so silly? Why am I that? That's the balancing act. Because if I literally took everything serious in life, I would be depressed and crying all the time, right? Because like you said, there's so many triggers. I was at work and that happened. I'm at the copy machine. I'm a therapist, so I'm in a building full of therapists. So you think someone would understand or no? There's no thought in, like you said, the brain is not expecting at work with coworkers to deal with trauma. At work with clients, I'm dealing with trauma. So that's how brains work, right? We program ourselves to think in ways or norms that make sense to us. So I'm at a copy machine. A guy walks up. He ain't do nothing wrong. I literally fly, like you say, startle, jump into the air, papers everywhere, everything's flown all over the thing, and now he's uncomfortable. And now I'm uncomfortable that I made him uncomfortable based on something that happened to me.
That's a microcosm right there. Wow.
And now, which is why I'm in private practice, I don't want to work around people. It's too much to explain all the time. People tell me, oh, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't, because you're normal and people understand you. And everything I do is not understood, so I do have to explain lots of things. Even Kennedy said something like, oh, you like to be mysterious. Or Leah, I think. Leah teases me all the time. She's like, oh, you like to be mysterious. I don't like to be. But even that is a slight trigger that she doesn't realize. People think this is what I want, or this is an identity. Oh, you're so complicated or complex. You think I want to be? I would love to be easily understood. Maybe it would have gotten me some help as a child. But it didn't. So now that I've accepted that truth about me and I communicated, oh, you trying to be this. You want attention. Even when I talk about molestation, oh, all these years that happened, you still talking, it looks like I want attention. So what makes you think that's what I want attention about?
Yeah.
So that's why I said it's constantly being okay with being misunderstood. You got to be okay with that. But that's also where other things come from. People will say you're bold. Well, if you've been misunderstood and teased your whole life, does teasing really bother you to the same extent now as it did then? I've been teased by my siblings, my parents. My mother made fun of me committing suicide. My stepfather made jokes about committing suicide and molesting me, like, oh, you're going to tell people I touched you now. Like, so you think now you saying some shit is going to hit me the same? I dealt with that all my life. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt me, but it's not going to stop me from living my life and being myself. So it looks brave to people. It's not brave. I'm desensitized. Like you said, I'm numb. I'm numb to your thoughts. I'm numb to your opinions. Which is where the connection is challenging, right? Because people want to connect. You want to connect. Why do I want to connect with you? I'm numb to wanting to connect with people because connections are painful for me. I do them. I work. I do all of this stuff because I want the world to be a better place. I told a client the other day, I cannot live here if the world stays this way. So I work every day to change the world. Because to stay in a world as is, of course, I would have killed myself. Why would I want to stay in this world as it is? With everything that I've experienced and everything I see, people just walk past. A kid has been traumatized and hurt. Not my problem. I got my own stuff to deal with. What you got to deal with? Bills? That's what you care about? Perfect credit score? That's what you care about? Getting another car? Not a life. But then we see the school shooting and everyone in the world talking about they care about kids. I'm thinking, you fucking liars. I sit and watch you ignore kids every day. I sit and watch you dismiss kids' pains every day. You're mad at this kid for shooting up the school. You shot up the school several times with your behaviors, with your actions. This one's just more visible. So we demonize that little kid. He was probably bullied too. He's probably going through shit too. He was a kid. We got adults shooting up the school. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard because I feel like for me, my greatest pain is my ability to overcome in some ways. Because when I bring out my intellect, I only mention it not as a boost for myself, but as a differentiation, right? Because I can express these things intelligently and articulately. I can communicate certain things. I can explain and express certain things. And I have the trauma or the psychology background to help me understand it. Most people in my situation don't have that. They're not articulating it. Even my brothers weren't molested, but they were physically abused. They were abused. They went through a lot of different shit because we still had other trauma. We went through lots of other trauma. They're not responding to their pain the same way they responded to my pain as a girl versus to a guy. I saw it. I saw people ignore their shit too. So it bothers me because I know everyone is in pain and everyone wants their pain to be seen. But we have to see each other's. And because we can't see each other's, like you even said, I don't want to sit there and think about how this happened to her. And I get that. But if we don't, then we don't understand each other and we can't get along. And we can't have healthy relationships. And I don't even just mean romantically, professionally, friendships, like families. None of these relationships are healthy. Like people talk about the divorce rate. I wonder if we could get statistics on like the family rate, like parent-child sibling dynamics, parent-child, sibling to sibling, friendships. What's the statistics? Because I get people coming to me every day. They don't got healthy friendships. They don't got healthy families. They don't got healthy romantic partners. Most people are not doing well in all these areas of life, which means why? This is the reason, but we don't want to sit. We want to talk about sex. We want to talk about Kanye. We want to talk about entertainment. We want to talk about rap. We want to feel good. And because we want to feel good all the time, we cannot sit in the discomfort to do the work that we need to heal. The person who's been traumatized ain't got no choice. You got to sit in that shit. So you have to heal in order to even be seen as somewhat normal. But the other people that feel like they're normal, they're not either. They just may not be as visible, so they're not sitting in it. And they don't want, that's part of what they're saying. I don't want to sit in that. That's reality that you don't want to sit in. That's real life.
I was going to ask you for some advice for folks who are dealing with the ramifications of sexual abuse in their life or in relationship of some kind with someone with sexual abuse and trauma in the past, in order to move our society forward, in order to move those relationships forward on a more micro level, what are the tips for both sides?
This is where I don't know if I believe in the tips, right? Like, I don't know. Because the tip is to take on someone else's pain, but no one wants to do that, right? Like,
For
when I
those who
listen
don't mind,
to-
how do you do it? They don't mind. They say, I'll sign up for that. How do I do that?
be the bigger person.
Okay.
Take the loss, right? So, for instance, I have a lot of guys that will talk about dating someone who's been depressed,
Okay.
right? Someone who's depressed. So, this person's depressed, you're dating this depressed person, and now you're upset by their symptoms. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
that's their symptoms, right? Low motivation. How many guys have complained about their girlfriend, partner being lazy? She don't want to do shit. Is she low motivated? Is she depressed? Like, you think she's lazy. That's what the society has said. This person don't want to get out of bed. They're lazy. They're depressed. There's no space for that. There's no space for somebody to lay in bed. I'm working every day. You're in bed. That's a problem. You're not carrying your weight. They can't. That's what I'm saying. Like, are you okay with someone who doesn't work? Are you okay, like, women or men, right? Because we talk about all the time standards. This is what I want from a person. This is what I want from a person. This is what I want. So what does everybody want? They want a fucking perfect person. Do you want to marry a person who doesn't work? Do you want to marry a person who has anger management problems? Do you want to marry a person who may have sexual intimacy issues? No, everybody wants a big dick. Everybody wants a wet pussy. Everybody wants the ideal. Well, guess what? No one is that every day. So the first work is shifting your expectations. You want somebody that's perfect. People love to say, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. Can you get okay with that? Can you want that?
And
Can
maybe
you
even
accept that?
analyzing why your standards are where they are.
Absolutely. Why is this your standard, right? Because probably you have some things too, which is what I've seen. I'm at max capacity with my own shit. I don't want to take on no one else's.
Yeah.
So should you be dating is the real question.
Yeah.
Or should you be dating in that sense, right? Because you can have sex, but we don't got to be trying to have a relationship. But that's also part of the problem. Everybody wants the relationship. I don't want just sex. I don't want just friendship. I don't want just this. You've already eliminated a lot of society because you've told yourself you don't want these other components. That's not good enough. What if that's all the person has to offer? What if that's all you really have to offer? So you're saying I don't want that, but you don't got no more to offer either.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not in a space to, but that's not that's not what we want. I am broken. You are broken. They are broken, right? But what does the broken person want? A healed whole person. I've never met a healed whole person.
Yeah, me neither.
So there's a lot of people that don't realize that because they think they're healed and whole, and they're in their relationship saying their person needs therapy or their person needs help. The other person needs something. I have not met a healed whole person. So if you know me, you ain't healed and whole. They won't believe that. I got in an argument with one of my guy friends about that. Everybody don't need therapy. Okay. I wouldn't date you if I was single with that mindset. And I'm going to limit my friendship with you now that I know you feel that way, because that's going to come out in other areas. That's what people don't realize. If you don't think you're ever the problem, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And that's going to come into the relationship. So if you can't say what you have to work on, I don't really want to do too much engaging. That's where the trauma issues come in, because I'm reading things too fast. So people are like, you didn't give me a chance. No. Because you had this symptom. And I know where that could go. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying you, but I'm reading already. Is this something, like you say, is this worth for me dealing with? Statistically, probability, no. Because the probability that this is going to blow up in my face is high. And I may not want to take that risk.
I can see that. Oh, boy. Normally I try to end it on a happy note, a lighter note. But this time I feel like a lot was said. I feel like for the people who got this far, hopefully you were blessed in some way. Most likely won't be the last time we touch this subject. It's such a
Probably not,
such
because
a
it's
big
so
one.
pervasive. I feel like I couldn't have even. I tried to give a wide variety of symptoms from small to large to get a scale
Yeah,
and a
I
perspective
think
of
we
it.
did. Yeah, good job.
But it's just like you said, it's so much, and I think that's the biggest problem. Like when my clients come, they feel connected because they're like, "Oh, you understand me in ways no one does because I've been through shit no one's been through." So it's hard because there's so many little things ways that's going to trigger or affect a person, right? The same way divorce. It don't have to be molestation. Divorce affects a person in a million ways.
Yeah.
That's ignored or not
Yep.
realized or not understood in society. So we see people moving through life and we're like, why are these things affecting them? What do you mean? We're human. Today's allowed to suck. And then tomorrow, it's a new day. And it don't have to be the whole day. We like to dramatize things. Oh, today sucked. Because one thing happened today, there's 10 things today that happen well. Focus on that. That's why I practice gratitude. So that's always my go away. Practice gratitude. I promise if you look for negative things, you will always see negative things.
Yeah.
If you look for positive, you will find them. Some days you have to look harder than others.
Right.
But there's always something positive to be seen. And what we do is we just, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Or like, yeah, but this, you're doing that. You've created that truth. This is bigger than that. It don't gotta be. This could be bigger. Because problems are always going to happen. The more I focus on the problem, it seems so big and insurmountable. You were molested. That's huge. That seems unsurmountable. But here I am living, and I spend lots of days happy and lots of days at joy and lots of days in peace. Lots of days I laugh with my husband and my kids, and lots of days I cry.
Yeah. Amen. Full spectrum.
Absolutely. And I like to dwell on the ones I laugh in, right? Like I've spent enough years dwelling on the negative, sitting with the pain, sitting with the trauma, sitting with why did this happen. So now, as much as I can, the sunset, the flowers, anything good, I'm sitting and I'm focusing on it and dwelling on it and spending as much time with it. And that's how I find my balance.
Amen. Amen. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again for this episode. Bless you. And we'll be back.
Blessings.